Have you ever wondered how those warbands arrived in Mordheim? Sure, some trudged through the mud and mire of the empire on foot, but ours sailed in. They made landfall aboard this towering, scratch-built Carrack, stuck and stitched together from planks, card, thread, and plenty of ambition. Inspired by the great sailing ships of the early 1500s, this model has been at sea, on the shelf, and even on the lark field for over 20 years. Today, I'll take you on a deep dive through the construction of this ship, how it was built, what's held up, and what needs restoration. I've created a makeshift harbour to anchor it in style, and sometime soon I will finish it off properly when I patch up some of the battered ruins you might remember from the Mordheim city build. So let's have a closer look at the ship and I'll let you know how I made it. To start off, the hull is the hull of a French or Spanish ship of the line from I would say the late 1700s. If we have a quick look underneath, we can see I have waterlined this original hull by just chopping off the lower sort of half of it. If you look head on, you can see the hull has got this excellent shape where it kind of curves in towards the bulwarks here. I felt that this shape was gave it some real character. It's the same at the stern as well. You can just see how it curves in, and this is a wooden model. So all of the sides of the ship are all made of these planks which have been steamed round and put into place. So when I chopped it off, we had a few issues. I didn't get it exactly right, and we smashed a bit of wood up. So what I did was I extended the hull down here with some card, and it's done the trick. I mean, you can't really tell from a distance whether it's the original model or if it's new. What I then did was I looked at what sort of scale we wanted this to be. If this is how big the hull is, how tall do the masts need to be? You know, how tall do the castles need to be? And I'd seen these amazing pictures of medieval ships in my Age of Sail history book, and they had these incredible castles on them, completely distorted out of shape. So I thought to myself, why don't we have a look at this in a bit more detail and see what we can do? So I actually found a picture, and I think it was of the Mary Rose, and I looked at the proportions, and basically I used that picture to get the proportions of the superstructure that you can see on here. So all of this section here, this is built up in card, and it's then been clad with different bits of wood. With some of it's got texture on. It's got this lovely rope texture on the wood here as it's been carved. And then here we've got portholes, hatches, all sorts of things made out of bits of balsa wood. So they've got texture on them. And then the fascias at the very top here, this is all made out of balsa wood as well. So plenty of it has got this wooden texture in it, but the actual substantial part of the superstructure is simply mounting card, hot glued onto the hull. Did the same for the forecastle. And all I did was look at the shape of these things on these medieval manuscripts and copied the proportions. I literally went, well, if that's how big the hull is, that's how tall the superstructure needs to be, and that's where we are. I also looked at the proportions of the masts versus the length of the ship itself. So the mast is in actual fact pretty much the same length as the length of the ship. So once you start to put all this in place, and then you can see we've got some great big perches, some great big crow's nests there. They're actually big enough to take some 20mm figure bases. So let's just pop one in. There we go. One in there. In he goes. And let's see, one in here. In he goes. This will actually take a 35mm base in this one. So masts in and superstructure done. It was time to look at the rigging. Now the rigging is an absolute godsend on a model like this, because you can imagine this is going to be quite fragile, just a mast sticking out of a hull, and you'd think that all of this would just break off really easily. Well, in actual fact, if you rig it properly with this kind of thick thread that I've put on here, everything holds itself together. I mean, this thing's stayed together for over 20 years, and it's been repaired a couple of times, but on the whole, it's in pretty good nick. I've hardly had to touch anything. I mean, I've taken this to lots of war game shows. I've also taken it to a live action role play event and used it as a prop within the game, and it's stayed strong. And it's all down to this rigging. The way of getting up into the crow's nest with these kind of wood rope ladders, this was interesting to make. What I did here was I taped out a load of long strips of the thread. I taped them out onto the bench in that kind of fan shape. I then marked out on the bench using pencil where the horizontal pieces need to go, and then I used super glue to attach cross pieces, and then once it was all dry and hard, I just snipped them all off flush with the line, and they've actually worked out a treat. The other thing I did was I got these blocks, so for the block and tackles, I got these from a local model shop, and they're just the kind that you get for making these wooden boats. And I had a good look at the rigging, tried to understand how it worked, and in actual fact, that the yards are suspended from the masts in essentially the way that they would have been on a real ship. So you can see that the yard is loose from the mast. So the sails themselves are just cotton cloth. I cut the cotton cloth to the right size and then stitched some of these lines down it. If you take a look a little bit closer, you'll see how they've got these kind of seams on them. They're not real seams, but we've created that effect, and it just gives it a little bit more drama, a little bit more effect. And then the sails held onto each yard by basically a needle and thread and sewing the sail onto the yard. I mean, it took a long time to do, but the effect is great because now you've got this rope winding round the yard, and it really gives it a kind of a texture, a nautical feel. I mean, it just feels right, even if it's not actually how they would have attached it. We've got this sail furled, but most of them I decided to leave them down because it just makes the whole thing, the ship, look more dramatic. So the flags at the top of the masts are just paper. I'm thinking of replacing these with metal, very, very thin, kind of like Coke can material, because they always droop down. They never look quite right, especially this longer one. I mean, the proportion of this one, I'll just move it into shot. The proportion of this one is huge, but on the drawing, that's how big it was. And I wanted to create that drama. I wanted to create that feel of that medieval manuscript in this model. Now you can see me rolling it around. You can see how tough it is. Just goes to show how strong the rigging makes it. Another thing that makes it feel right is some of the details. So the anchors are actually anchors from a model boat. They're not period, they're not quite exact. They probably look too modern, but I don't mind. They look like anchors, and that's the main thing. Now, on the stern, we've had a problem with the, we've had a problem here with the rudder. Rudder smashed off. I'm going to need to glue that back on. So that's going to be one of my repairs. And at an earlier juncture, previous time, this whole board which holds the rope ladder on, the whole thing snapped off. I can see, you probably can't see it, but I can see if I look close up that there's a line of PVA there where it's been glued back together. If we look here, if we look in the waist of the ship, we've got these areas where we've got hatches to let you into the hold. And there's even a crate in there, look. There we go, how about that? Something that makes the masts and the yards feel right is that they're tapered. So although we used a straight piece of wooden dowel for the masts, what we did was we got someone to hold the belt sander the other way up, and then we basically shaved the dowels down so that they had this kind of tapered effect, because that's how masts look. That's what they look like. And then the two parts of the mast here are stuck together with a bit of hot glue, but then I've wrapped it with the threads to make it look as it would in a real ship, lashed together. So to fit the masts, I attached these wooden blocks. I actually screwed them in between some of the cross braces in the hole there. Then I took a drill bit and I drilled down through the decks into those blocks and made a socket that the masts, each one sort of sits in. Then with the additional rigging, it's made them very, very strong, very firm indeed. The doors just here, these are some of the medieval doors, the white metal ones that were given to us by Games Workshop when they sent us all the parts for the Mordheim models. No medieval Carrack would be quite right without some sort of heraldry on it. So at the stern here, you can see a row of Bretonnian shields from the Bretonnian plastic sprue sets, and you can see the shields on the back there painted up in the same sort of livery as the sides of the ship here, this white and green effect. This ship's been through a lot. Games, conventions, even a Cub Scout camp. It's been broken. It's been fixed. It's never really been perfect, and that's probably why I love it so much. Every splinter, every sagging rope, every oversized flag, not all of it quite to scale, but all of it tells a story. And now it's got a new port to call home. If you've ever thought about building a fantasy ship or restoring something long forgotten in your terrain box, take this as your sign and make a start. And remember, imperfect models often make perfect memories. Thanks for watching, and with that, we'll see you on the battlefield.